This is the Nutrition During Pregnancy module. My name is Kimberly Prezioso. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist and a certified lactation educator. If you listen to the module on basic nutrition and nutrition education, my apologies, you've heard my background before. I have been an RDN for 25 years this year, and my scope of practice has always revolved around the prenatal and pediatric period of the life cycle. I currently am at Northeast Valley Health Corporation as a high-risk dietitian for the WIC program, and am the medical nutrition therapist for our San Fernando High School's based clinic. I am also the public relations coordinator for a grant called Champions for Change Healthy Communities Initiative. In that grant, we work to make the healthy choice the easy choice for today's family and aim to reduce obesity by helping families make simple yet strategic lifestyle changes like choosing to eat more veggies and fruits and be more active. Women of childbearing age should adopt a lifestyle optimizing health and reducing risk of birth defects, suboptimal fetal development, and chronic health problems in both mother and child. Components leading to healthy pregnancy outcome include healthy pre-pregnancy weight, appropriate weight gain and physical activity during pregnancy, consumption of a wide variety of foods, appropriate vitamin mineral supplementation, avoidance of alcohol, as well as other harmful substances, and safe food handling. So this is from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. This is their position paper from the Nutrition and Lifestyle for a Healthy Pregnancy Outcome, and it actually serves as a basis for this lecture. So pregnancy is a vital period during which maternal nutrition and lifestyle choices are key influences on mother and child health. Improving the well-being of mothers, infants, and children is significant to the health of the next generation. 1 in 33 babies, or approximately 3%, are born with a birth defect. In 2010, low birth weight infants comprised 8.1% of all U.S. births. Birth defects and low birth weight are ranked first and second, respectively, among the 10 leading causes of death in U.S. infants in 2006. 10 years later, the stats have not changed according to the CDC. When women pursue healthy behaviors, including high-quality nutrition, recommended supplementation, and avoidance of detrimental substances, a woman's chance of having a healthy baby improves. A healthy baby has a higher chance of a healthy lifespan. Let's review the course objectives. After successful completion of this course, students will describe the difference between the nutritional needs of a woman who is neither pregnant nor lactating, pregnant, lactating, describe the weight gain recommendations for women pregnant with singletons and women pregnant with multiples, describe the increased caloric needs during each trimester of pregnancy, and list at least 4 poor health outcomes of obesity during pregnancy on the pregnant mother and her infant. Food. One small word with so much meaning behind it. We all know that food is the fuel that keeps the body alive, and not just alive, but can allow it to flourish or deteriorate, to prosper, or to weaken. Fuel provides fuel, building blocks for growth and maintenance. It provides substances that act to control body processes. But besides that, eating can be one of the greatest pleasures of living. To eat for good health does not mean you must miss out on the pleasures of eating. Eating for good health can and should mean truly enjoying delicious and healthy food, which improves your chance at thriving, not just surviving. And you may notice as you eat healthier, your body craves more nutritious food that satisfies the body. Pregnancy and lactation are critical periods during which maternal nutrition and lifestyle choices are major influences on the health of mother and child. Inadequate levels of key nutrients, due to low maternal body reserves and insufficient food intake during crucial periods of fetal development, may lead to reprogramming during pregnancy, predisposing the infant to chronic conditions in later life. It may also lead to less than optimum fetal growth or even death. Improving the well-being of mothers, infants, and children is key to the health of the next generation. Fortunately, pregnancy and lactation are times during a woman's life when she is more motivated to make positive lifestyle changes. As educators, it is critical that you have a basic understanding of sound nutrition principles and are able to effectively convey those guidelines. It is important to realize that many individuals have limited, incomplete, or inaccurate nutrition and health information. Currently, much of the vast amount of health and nutrition information is incorrect or incomplete and is filtered through limited or false beliefs. Simply put, it is not evidence-based. Media's influence on consumer practices is substantial, and oftentimes what people think are health messages are, in fact, product advertisements. and the influence of marketing on young children has been widely established. There is serious money involved in food marketing, and we could spend an hour on that issue alone. Suffice it to say that unbiased, evidence-based nutrition information is critical for the well-being of today's family, but is often difficult for the public to distinguish the good from the bad. In the earlier module, we spent a few moments talking about how women are often more open and responsive to improving their nutrition status during pregnancy and lactation. They want to give their children the best possible outcome. Capturing these teachable moments can lead to lifelong positive changes and should be exploited, but exploited in a positive sense. As educators, take advantage of this acceptable and impressionable time. As educators, consideration as to the background and experience of your client is critical. Having an understanding of their knowledge, beliefs, skills, culture, food practices, and health history is critical to providing solid nutrition and health information. As educators, your own background comes into play. However, all nutrition recommendations should be evidence-based and unbiased. Personal experience, while it can contribute significantly to trust and competency, and even add some credibility, must always support solid dietary theories. So, the solid dietary theories, where do those come from? Well, the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, issues updated dietary guidelines about every 5 years. These guidelines, the latest of which were released in 2015, are the foundation for nutrition recommendations. Intended for policymakers and health professionals, these dietary guidelines are designed to help Americans eat a healthier diet. The 8th edition of the Dietary Guidelines outlines how people can improve their overall eating patterns, the complete combination of food and drinks in their diet. This 8th edition offers 5 overarching guidelines and a number of key recommendations with specific nutritional targets and dietary limits. As I mentioned in the basic nutrition module, over the past century, deficiencies of essential nutrients have dramatically decreased. Many infectious diseases have been conquered, and the majority of the U.S. population can now anticipate a long and productive life. At the same time, rates of chronic diseases, many of which are related to poor diet quality and physical inactivity, have increased. About 50% of all American adults have one or more preventable, diet-related chronic diseases, including cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and overweight and obesity. However, a large body of evidence now shows that healthy eating patterns and regular physical activity can help people achieve and maintain good health and reduce the risk of chronic disease throughout all stages of the lifespan. The 2015-2020 Dietary Guidelines for Americans highlights this with its recommendations. Now, why do we look to the Dietary Guidelines as a foundation? Well, the 1990 National Nutrition Monitoring and Related Research Act states that every 5 years, the U.S. Departments of Health and Human Services and the USDA must jointly publish a report containing nutritional and dietary information and guidelines for the general public. The law requires that the dietary guidelines be based on the preponderance of current scientific and medical knowledge. The 2015-2020 edition of the Dietary Guidelines builds from the 2010 edition with revisions based on the scientific report of the 2015 Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee and consideration of federal agency and public comments. Earlier editions of the Dietary Guidelines were required to go through the same exhaustive process. As I mentioned earlier, the Dietary Guidelines is designed for professionals to help all individuals ages 2 years and older and their families consume a healthy, nutritionally adequate diet. The information in the Dietary Guidelines is used in developing federal food, nutrition, and health policies and programs, and it is also the basis for federal nutrition education materials designed for the public and for the nutrition education components of HHS and USDA food programs. It's developed for use by policymakers and nutrition and health professionals. Businesses, schools, community groups, media, the food industry, and state and local governments also look to the guidelines for direction. While pregnancy is not the time to lose weight, women should not use this time as a reason to eat more than necessary. The amount of food a woman needs during pregnancy depends on a number of things, including her body mass index or BMI before pregnancy, the rate at which she gains weight during her pregnancy, her age, as well as her appetite. All pregnant women should eat a variety of nutrient-rich foods each day. Many women start off pregnancy with an overweight or obese BMI, and many gain more weight than is healthy during their pregnancy. Research shows the risk of problems during pregnancy and delivery is lowest when weight gain is kept within a healthy range. Obesity during pregnancy is risky for both mother and child, with some risks including gestational diabetes, gestational hypertension or high blood pressure, cesarean delivery, birth defects, and even fetal death. And that is not an exhaustive list of obesity-related prenatal outcomes. More and more research is looking at the risk of obesity extensively. If a woman is obese during pregnancy, it also raises the chance her child will be obese later in life. For further study, as mentioned in the text, you can access perinatology.com for detailed recommendations of key nutrients during pregnancy. If this module has kind of just inspired you to not just look at basic nutrition, but to go a little bit further. So one of the reasons why prenatal nutrition is critical is because from infancy, the female body is preparing for childbirth. Adequate nutrition from infancy to childbirth, through the teen years and beyond, is important to establish not only healthy eating patterns, but offers women a better opportunity to achieve and maintain a healthy body, which leads to a healthy pregnancy outcome. Additionally, not all pregnancies are planned. In fact, 50% of U.S. pregnancies are unexpected. When women are already adhering to solid nutrition practices, a surprise pregnancy is already on solid ground. Prior to women knowing they are pregnant, they may experience sleepiness, nausea, frequent urination, and tender breasts. As well, the baby's most critical phase of pregnancy is during the first trimester when all major organs are formed: the brain and spinal cord, the digestive system, the urinary system, the circulatory system, etc. Having good nutritional status, including a healthy weight before becoming pregnant, offers the opportunity for a better outcome. And healthy eating patterns, like following the dietary guidelines that we mentioned earlier, can even help with conception. Having an abnormal weight, whether it be overweight, obese, or underweight, may hinder the ability to become pregnant. Normal pre-pregnancy BMI matters. More and more research is determining that obesity and poor prenatal nutrition status may raise the risk level for multiple chronic conditions later in life, the mother's life as well as the baby's. These include obesity, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. Alcohol intake can have serious consequences on a baby's short-term and long-term development, and women of childbearing age who are planning on becoming pregnant should eliminate consumption. Regular checkups where iron status is monitored also helps women, as well as their future little ones, off to an optimum start. Taking folic acid supplementation is another consideration, as neural tube defects occur prior to the discovery of a pregnancy. In this next section, we will focus specifically on pregnancy. I will discuss normal gestation, normal BMI, increased nutrient need, as well as weight gain. We'll compare 3 different diets and look at eating patterns, including a sample menu and food group equivalents. So a normal pregnancy consists of around 38 weeks or 3 trimesters, each about 13 weeks long. Prematurity is birth at less than 37 weeks, and the first trimester is generally a period of development, while the second and third trimesters are periods of growth. Now, many women start off pregnancy with an overweight or obese BMI, and many gain more weight than is healthy during their pregnancy. Research shows that the risk of problems during pregnancy and delivery, as well as later on in life for both the mother and the baby, is lowest when weight gain is kept within a healthy range. Obesity during pregnancy is risky for both mother and child, with some risks including gestational diabetes, gestational hypertension or high blood pressure, a C-section, birth defects, and even fetal death. Studies demonstrate that if a woman is obese during pregnancy, it also raises the chance that her child will be obese later in life. So the latest weight gain guidelines by the Institute of Medicine are based on a woman's BMI before pregnancy, and the amount of weight gain during pregnancy depends on which category the pre-pregnancy BMI lands in. So what is BMI? BMI, or body mass index, is a person's weight in kilograms divided by the square of height in meters. A high BMI may be an indicator of high body fatness. BMI may be used to screen for weight categories that may lead to health problems, but it really isn't diagnostic of body fatness or health of an individual. But that being said, BMI does appear to be strongly correlated with various metabolic and disease outcomes, as are more direct measures of body fatness. And in general, BMI is an inexpensive and easy to perform method of screening for weight category, for example, underweight, normal or healthy weight, overweight, and obesity. So for adults 20 years and older, BMI is interpreted using standard weight status categories. And these categories are the same for men and women of all body types and ages. The standard weight status categories associated with BMI ranges for adults are shown in the table. So if your BMI is below 18.5, your weight status is underweight. If it's between 18.5 and 24.9, you are at a normal or healthy weight. If it is between 25 and 29.9, that would put you in the overweight status. And if it is 30 or above, that would be in the obesity category. A primary factor leading to a healthy pregnancy outcome includes, like we've mentioned, a healthy pre-pregnancy weight. Being too thin can hinder conception, and being overweight can lead to a higher birth weight. It can also lead to pregnancy-induced hypertension or high blood pressure, gestational diabetes, heartburn, and even delayed lactogenesis or onset of breast milk. To improve maternal and child health outcomes, women should weigh within the normal BMI range when they conceive and strive to gain within ranges recommended by the Institute of Medicine Pregnancy Weight Guidelines. High rates of overweight and obesity are common in populations already at risk for poor maternal and child health outcomes, compounding the need for intervention. In addition to health risks, gestational weight gain beyond the recommendation substantially increases risk of excess weight retention in obese women at 1 year postpartum, as well as leading to chronic diseases later in life. Like, again, you're going to hear these diseases mentioned a lot during these modules. So, leading to chronic diseases later in life like hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes for both baby and mom, as I've mentioned. In addition, intrauterine growth retardation is linked to coronary heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and high blood pressure in adult life. This can occur due to restricted growth followed by rapid growth. Macrosomia, or large sized at birth, can be correlated to an increased risk of diabetes and cardiovascular disease, as well as risk of certain forms of cancer. Gestational diabetes increases these risks and is related to pre-pregnancy overweight or obesity and high weight gain prenatally. Optimal outcomes matter in the short term, and the short-term outcomes affect the long-term diet-related outcomes. On this slide, you can see that obesity during pregnancy can lead to many of the following conditions, such as gestational diabetes, hypertension, having to have a C-section, birth defects, even fetal death. It can lead to preterm delivery. It can lead to low birth weight, or it can lead to high birth weight. It can lead to delayed lactogenesis, and it can also lead to poor long-term outcomes. Remember, optimal outcomes matter in the short term, and the short-term outcomes affect long-term diet-related outcomes. Appropriate weight gain and physical activity during pregnancy, consumption of a wide variety of foods, appropriate vitamin and mineral supplementation, avoidance of alcohol and other harmful substances, and safe food handling are all important components of a successful pregnancy. Pregnancy is a critical period during which maternal nutrition and lifestyle choices are major influences on mother and child health. Improving the well-being of mothers, infants, and children is key to the health of the next generation. Basically, women need increased amounts of most nutrients during pregnancy to a limited degree. Although prenatal overnutrition results in poor health outcomes for the baby that emerge in childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, prenatal undernutrition is also detrimental. The ideal prenatal diet should limit overconsumption for the mother and prevent undernutrition for the fetus. Women who are healthy prior to pregnancy may not need to make significant changes to their diets during pregnancy. As mentioned earlier, women are particularly inclined to make positive changes during this stage of the life cycle and use this as an opportunity to improve her eating habits. We've all heard the phrase eating for two, and while in reality, additional calories really are more limited than most imagine. Weight gain during pregnancy is to support the growth and development of the baby, to develop support organs and systems, and prepare for lactation. The breakdown of how much each component on average weighs is as follows. On average, babies weigh about 7.5 pounds. A woman's breasts are about 1.5 pounds. The uterus, also 1.5 pounds. The placenta, likewise, 1.5 pounds. Blood and other fluids are about 3 pounds. And maternal fat is about 10 pounds. Again, this is an average. The overall idea, eating well in pregnancy means eating twice as healthy, not eating twice as much. So weight gain during pregnancy should follow the pattern of 1 to 4 pounds total during the first 3 months of the first trimester, and 2 to 4 pounds per month during the 4th to 9 months, second and third trimesters. Taller women should gain on the upper range and shorter women on the lower end of the range. Older women may need to take special care that due to lowered metabolism, they may gain weight more easily. And teens, especially those who have menstruated for less than 4 years, also need to take special care and gain weight at the upper range, and we'll discuss that later. Evidence is building that maternal diet and lifestyle choices influence the long-term health of the mother and her children. Studies have even found that pre-pregnancy healthy eating have been associated with a 24 to 46% lower risk of gestational diabetes. Population-based research also provides evidence that maternal obesity may be associated with neurodevelopmental problems, including autism and developmental delays in children. The IOM recommends that more U.S. women achieve gestational weight gain within the range identified for their pre-pregnant BMI. Pregnant women benefit from eating a variety of foods to meet nutritional needs and consuming sufficient calories to support recommended weight gain. Pre-pregnancy weight is a factor in prenatal weight gain. You can see the BMI and weight status on the left-hand side and the recommended weight gain on the right. If someone is underweight prior to becoming pregnant, they need to gain around 28 to 40 pounds. Shorter women on the lower range and taller women on the upper range. If you are of normal weight before becoming pregnant, you generally need to gain about 25 to 35 pounds. If someone is overweight to begin with, they only need to gain around 15 to 25 pounds because they already do have some maternal fat stores. And if a woman is obese, it is recommended that they gain 11 to 20 pounds. For twins, the recommendations naturally go up. So for a normal BMI prior to pregnancy, the weight gain recommendation is around 37 to 54 pounds. If they are overweight, it's around 31 to 50 pounds. And if someone is obese, it's around 25 to 42 pounds. And there are no set guidelines for underweight BMI weight gain with twins. So this is a slide that highlights the ChooseMyPlate.gov campaign and philosophy. And I kind of refer to this slide as our foundation. This is basically a summary of nutrition practices and principles. So for the most part, if there's one thing that you take away in terms of nutrition, this logo pretty much sums it up. So keeping half your plate fruits and vegetables really helps people maintain an appropriate caloric intake. It helps them get nutrient-dense foods in terms of vitamins and minerals and fiber that help offset diseases and conditions. It also keeps, grains and protein in check. It keeps your fat intake down, and it really affords a good balance, variety, and moderation in your diet. The ChooseMyPlate.gov website has a very comprehensive list of all things nutrition. So you can go on there and find healthy eating patterns. You can find helpful tips and recommendations. You can find budget-friendly recipes. It just has a vast amount of information about food and nutrition as well as physical fitness. Most pregnant women, except those who are overweight or obese, will need food plans that provide between 2,200 and 2,900 calories a day. The Daily Food Plan for Moms is available on an interactive website that I've included in the resource list at the end of the module and can be used as a starting point to help women make good food choices and plan a balanced diet. The MyPlate, www.choosemyplate.gov, which was on the last slide, can be used in conjunction with the Daily Food Plan for Mom to convey appropriate portion sizes to follow the plan. Now, a gradual increase in calories as the baby grows is always the way to go. And here's an overview of how calorie needs change during each trimester. During the first trimester, there really aren't any extra calories required. During the second trimester, an additional 340 calories a day are recommended. 340 calories, It really isn't a lot. It's definitely not eating for two. And I've listed some equivalents to 340 calories. So again, this is just an average, but 340 calories, that's something that you'd find in, 2 street tacos, half a sandwich and a glass of milk, a smoothie. Kind of listed the ingredients there for a smoothie. It's whole grain toast with a tablespoon and a half of almond butter topped with some sliced bananas and strawberries, a half a cup of hummus with a cup of raw carrots and bell peppers, a quarter cup of guacamole with a third cup baked tortilla chips, or a quarter of a cup of trail mix. So again, as you can see, 340 calories, it's really not a lot. It's like an additional snack during the day. And again, these are all nutrient-dense choices. So in the third trimester, what you're looking at is only around 450 calories extra a day. That's more like, an additional meal a day. And that's total. It's not on top of the, second trimester's 340 calories. So again, 450 calories, that's, a breakfast burrito with a side of fruit, or even a grilled cheese sandwich with a banana. So additional calories should come from, again, nutrient-dense foods, including lean proteins, whole grains, dairies, veggies, and fruits. You can avoid unneeded extra calories by cutting down on foods high in fat, as well as foods that have added sugars, such as regular sodas, sweets, and fried foods. So what does a 2,200 calorie a day diet look like? So on the slide, you'll see that means it's about 2 servings of fruits, 3 servings of veggies, 7 servings of grains, 3 servings of dairy, 6 servings of protein. And the items to limit, you'd want to limit sodium to 2,300 milligrams a day, saturated fat to 24 grams a day, and added sugars to 55 grams a day. And this is from, again, the website that I talked about earlier, the choosemyplate.gov website. This is just a typical calorie recommendation for most prenatal women, although if you have a client that's fitting into maybe an underweight category, she might need to gain a little more weight, and this might need to be bumped up a little bit. Or if you have a client who is overweight or obese, this may need to be taken down a little bit as well. And again, the choosemyplate.gov has different diet plans that you can look up. So before we go any further, I'd like to talk briefly about portion sizes and servings. And if you listen to the basic nutrition and nutrition education module, the last part of that module goes into great detail about serving sizes. One of the biggest culprits in the American diet today in the obesity epidemic is portion distortion. So people are either unaware or they're unconcerned about portion size. And when coupled with a lack of understanding about how many servings from each food group is needed, it's no wonder that the American diet, along with the American population, is just in a really critical state. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about portion sizes, you can go to the basic nutrition and nutrition education module at the very end, and you can see just different examples of what each of the serving sizes would be. So one thing to note about following a specific plan, every woman is different, and some women would embrace this type of strict guidance, while others need something a little more fluid. And if a woman is really following her satiety cues, she should be able to follow the recommendations found here that also line up with the dietary guidelines and obtain a healthy weight. So if you're looking at a 2,000 calorie diet, again, for someone that might not need to gain quite as much weight, again, you can see that some of the servings have changed a little bit. So fruit is now 2 servings. Vegetables, that went down a little bit to 2.5 servings. Grains is 6 servings. Dairy is 3 servings. And protein, that went down as well to about 5.5 servings. Again, you're going to limit your sodium, your saturated fat, and your added sugars. So this is a sample menu of a 2,200 calorie diet. This is following the guidance of the slide that you saw 2 slides previously. So as you can see, this goes through breakfast, a morning snack, a lunch, an afternoon snack, dinner, and even an evening snack. And as you can see, there's a lot of food there. There's a lot of balance and variety. There's, protein. There's some lean proteins in there. There's a lot of fresh fruits and veggies. It's limited in saturated fats. There's a lot of whole grains. So it really is hitting all of the nutritional marks. So this is a 2,400 calorie diet. And so this is if women are a little underweight pre-pregnancy wise. And again, this could even be met by having an additional after dinner snack or just doubling the size of one snack during the day, and you'd pretty much hit that extra 200 calories. But as you can see, fruits is 2 cups, veggies are 3 cups or 3 servings. Grains, it's about 8 ounces, so that went up a little bit. Dairy is still 3 cups. Protein went up to 6.5. And again, the saturated fat and the added sugars went up a little bit as well, and sodium remains the same. And the differences in this module are listed in red. And one thing to note about this is for the saturated fat being 27 grams a day in added sugars, that isn't one of those where you have to hit that. That's one of those where eating less of those is definitely a plus. Those are the upper limits. Now, around 2,000 calories a day is appropriate if women were overweight prior to pregnancy only, and maybe only choosing one snack a day. So like we were saying, 2,200 calories is the norm for most prenatal women. But again, if they were overweight or obese to begin with, an 1,800 calorie diet may be a little more appropriate for them. You can see in red what is been changed. So fruits and veggies as well as grains, those each drop a little bit along with protein. Saturated fat and added sugars, those go down a little bit. Again, I can't emphasize enough how consumer and user-friendly ChooseMyPlate.gov is. They do have a lot of additional plans and more practical resources to use. So this slide looks at food groups trimester by trimester, and it breaks it down even further into looking at an 1,800 calorie diet, a 2,200 calorie diet, and a 2,400 calorie diet. And it looks at the food groups, food group by food group, grains, veggies, fruits, dairy, protein, and fats and oils. And it lists exactly how much of each food group would be appropriate for each calorie diet level. It also on the side gives an example of what each of those food groups might be. So for grains, 1 slice of bread is a serving, a half a cup of cooked rice, half a cup of cooked pasta, etc. So this is a good go-to slide in terms of really summing up what each of the diet plans looks like. So looking at women who are carrying more than one baby, for women with a BMI of 18.5 to 24.9, which was a pre-pregnancy normal weight, about 40 to 45 calories per kilogram pre-pregnancy weight per day has been recommended for intake. There should be caution that adequate weight gain should be used as an indicator of sufficient energy intake. Now for underweight women, the estimate is around 42 to 50 calories per kilogram pre-pregnancy weight per day. And for overweight women, it drops to around 30 to 35 calories per kilogram pre-pregnancy weight per day. Now, the DRIs state that beginning in the second trimester, sufficient energy intake, as well as an additional 50 grams of protein per day above the non-pregnant DRI for protein, is prudent for multiple pregnancies. And then to ensure that protein intake is adequate for women carrying multiple babies, macronutrient composition, percent kcal, may be optimal at 20% protein, 40% fat, and 40% carbohydrate. And again, emphasizing, just what we've been talking about before, whole grains, limiting saturated fats, and keeping half of your plate fruits and veggies. There are special situations to consider when working with underweight women. A poor prenatal diet can lead to low maternal storage of nutrient and insufficient micronutrients available for human milk. Malabsorption issues such as surgery, Crohn's disease, and other GI orders may have resulted in a lack of nutrients. And finally, if a woman has disordered eating, that can actually result in a low fat content in her milk and low levels of certain nutrients. So in that last situation, we'll talk about eating disorders later on in this module, but if a woman isn't already under the care of a healthcare team that specializes in disordered eating, a gentle referral may be necessary in order for this mom to really address the issues that she's facing and to assist her on the way to becoming fully healthy. So complications due to obesity during pregnancy include spontaneous miscarriage, birth defects. There may be limitations to the ultrasound and its readability and the ability of the technician in identifying other conditions and disorders. Gestational diabetes, as we've mentioned before, is a factor. There could be high blood pressure. A stillbirth can result from obesity, as well as other fetal growth anomalies. So other complications due to obesity during the labor and delivery phase, there might be difficulty in fetal monitoring. There might be a need for a cesarean delivery. There's also reports of decreased success of a vaginal birth after a C-section, and difficulty in anesthesia as well. So a postpartum complication due to obesity could be postpartum hemorrhaging, wound infection, as well as obesity in their offspring. So in terms of weight issues, if a woman is overweight, she might require special support, especially for breastfeeding. So if a woman is overweight, she may need special support when it comes to, Obesity leads to increased health risks. We've mentioned these a number of times before, and I realize that I am repeating these a lot, but I do want to really emphasize that diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and more are real and severe complications of obesity. What many mothers don't consider is the hindrance that it might be to breastfeeding. So obese women have 4 times the risk of not initiating breastfeeding. That's 4 times. And research has demonstrated that obesity may delay the onset of breast milk, as well as a delay in the prolactin response to sucking. So research has demonstrated that obesity may delay the onset of breast milk, as well as a delay in the prolactin response to sucking. Additionally, okay. So, So women who struggle with overweight or obesity, they need to be cautioned. And again, just okay. So women who are overweight or obese, they may need special support. Besides the delayed lactogenesis due to obesity, or because of the obesity needing a C-section, they may need extra assistance during the colostral phase. And as, oh my gosh, what is my problem? I cannot do this. I realize I've spent quite a bit of time talking about overweight and obesity issues. I purposely did that because as a nation, we are facing an obesity epidemic. Upwards of 60% of our population is either overweight or obese. So you will be having prenatal clients that are struggling with overweight and obesity issues. Important to remember here is that they will need some special support. Studies are really finding that there is delayed lactogenesis too, either because of obesity or because they had a C-section, whatever the cause the C-section was, whether it was a medical issue or whether it was because of obesity, and they will be needing extra assistance during the colostral phase. But the important takeaway here is that they need to be expecting that lactogenesis may be delayed in this situation. And if you are really helping them in terms of what to expect during the colostral phase, then that will help them be more successful and give them a better chance at having a successful breastfeeding experience. Extra encouragement early on prenatally, it's really important studies are finding that obese women are 4 times more likely to not initiate breastfeeding, either because there's a birth complication or because they have short and or flat nipples due to the increased fat tissue. And also studies are finding that obese women are less likely to continue breastfeeding. Extra encouragement with those clients, helping them to know what to expect and really guiding them through those first few days of breastfeeding is really, really important. As well, babies of women who are overweight or obese, they tend to be larger babies, and those babies as well have less of a breastfeeding duration. It is really critical that these clients do receive some extra support and extra assistance in order to help them be successful in breastfeeding. So this is our first test your knowledge slide for this module, and I am going to read the question and then wait about 10 seconds before the answer pops up. So what are all of the possible consequences of prenatal obesity to the mother and to the baby? So some of the consequences of prenatal obesity include gestational diabetes, hypertension, a C-section, birth defects, fetal death, preterm delivery, a low birth weight, a high birth weight, delayed lactogenesis, and poor long-term outcomes. So what is the additional caloric requirement for the first trimester, for the second trimester, and for the third trimester? So for the first trimester, there actually is no additional caloric requirement. The first trimester is just a period of development. During the second trimester, it's around 340 calories, and during the third trimester, it's about 450 calories. So let's take a look at hunger and fatigue. So different nutrients are absorbed and released at different rates. And having a basic understanding of this principle can help women choose foods more strategically. Simple carbohydrates like sugar or juice are absorbed quickly and cause a rapid rise in blood sugar. And in general, complex carbohydrates are absorbed more slowly and cause a more gradual rise in blood sugar. The glycemic index, simply put, is a measure of how quickly a food causes our blood sugar levels to rise. And the measure ranks food on a scale of 0 to 100. So foods with a high glycemic index, or GI, are quickly digested and absorbed, and it causes a rapid rise in blood sugar. And the foods that rank high on the GI scale are often, but not always, high in processed carbs and sugars. So pretzels, for example, have a glycemic index of 83, and a baked potato measures up at around 98. Meanwhile, foods with a low GI are digested and absorbed at a slower rate and subsequently cause a slower rise in blood sugar levels. And these are typically rich in fiber, protein, and fat. And those 3 elements, fiber, protein, and fat, will actually help slow down the rise in blood sugar level. So, for example, an apple would have a glycemic index of about 28, Greek-style yogurt 11, and peanuts at around 7. So you can see there that the foods on the lower end of the glycemic index are going to cause a slower rise in blood sugar level. So after complex carbohydrates, proteins are digested even more slowly, and fats and fiber even slower than that. Again, these foods cause blood sugar to rise more slowly and steadily, and even fall steadily. So when blood sugar rises more slowly and falls more slowly, it actually leads to a feeling of satiety or satisfaction. And that's why if you have a meal primarily of refined carbohydrates, it will actually leave you feeling hungry more quickly. But a combination of protein, some fat, fiber, and carbs, a well-balanced meal or snack, that leads to feelings of longer fullness. Other substances can impact hunger as well. So caffeine and tobacco have been found to suppress appetite, while marijuana and alcohol actually stimulate the appetite. 3 well-balanced meals and 2 snacks consisting of a variety of foods is critical. Including complex carbohydrates, protein, fiber, and some fat will offer the best opportunity for women to really manage their hunger and manage their weight prenatally. So the consumption of more food to meet energy needs and the increased absorption and efficiency of nutrient utilization that occurs during pregnancy are generally adequate to meet the needs for most nutrients when good food choices are made. And now there are a few exceptions. Vitamin and mineral supplementation is generally routine, and it's even more important in vulnerable cases, such as those including food insecurity, alcohol abuse, tobacco, or other substance dependency. It's also important in cases of anemia, strict vegetarian or vegan diets, or when someone really just has poor eating habits. In general, pregnant women should seek medical consultation before taking a supplement that exceeds the tolerable upper limits for a particular vitamin or mineral, although women should inform their healthcare providers of all supplements taken. And again, we'll be looking at these in really specific ways. Many women consume less than the recommended amounts of calcium, magnesium, zinc, vitamin B6, and folate, and many new mothers are likely to have stopped taking their prenatal vitamins. If a nutritional deficit is suspected, prenatal supplements generally don't include a significant amount of calcium. In addition, during lactation, 250 to 350 milligrams of calcium is transferred daily from the mother to the baby through breast milk. So patients should be apprised of the need for additional supplementation to meet the requirement for this key mineral. And it's important to emphasize that vitamin and mineral supplements can't replace a healthy diet. It's also important to recognize that variety in a diet is important. Variety is what allows us to consume the full scope of vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. The bottom line, encourage your clients to aim for eating well and not perfectly. So now we're going to look at specific nutrients, starting off with folate. To prevent neural tube defects, all women of childbearing years should consume 400 micrograms per day of folate from fortified foods, like cereals and other grains, from supplements, or from both. Moreover, beginning 1 month before conception, pre-pregnant women should up their intake and consume folate from foods in a varied diet that reach around 500 micrograms a day. That is the ideal situation. Keep in mind that 50% of all American pregnancies are unplanned. You can see the increased levels recommended for pregnant and lactating women. The critical time for when the neural tube defect is occurring is prior to or just barely when a woman discovers she's pregnant. By then, supplementation is ineffective in offering protection against spina bifida or anencephaly. During pregnancy, demands for folate increases due to its role in nucleic acid synthesis. So what are good sources of folate? The major natural sources of dietary folate are legumes, green leafy veggies, liver, citrus fruits and juices, whole wheat bread. It's also available in nuts, beans, dairy products, poultry, and meat. It's also available in eggs, seafood, and grains. Spinach, liver, yeast, asparagus, and Brussels sprouts are also among foods with the highest levels of folate. So compared to the naturally occurring folate in foods, the synthetic form of folic acid, which is the form in a vitamin, contained in fortified foods and supplements, is almost twice as well absorbed. So keep in mind that your clients should be getting good sources of folate from natural sources as well as a supplement. So strict vegetarians and vegans are at greater risk than lacto-ovo-vegetarians and non-vegetarians of developing vitamin B12 deficiency because natural food sources of vitamin B12 are limited to mostly animal foods. And a lacto-ovo-vegetarian is a vegetarian that does eat milk or cheese. So fortified breakfast cereals are one of the few sources of vitamin B12 from plants and can be used as a dietary source of vitamin B12 for strict vegetarians and vegans. Since vitamin B12 crosses the placenta during pregnancy and is present in breast milk, exclusively breastfed infants and women who consume no animal products may have very, very limited reserves of vitamin B12. They can develop vitamin B12 deficiency within months of birth. And undetected and untreated vitamin B12 deficiency in infants can result in severe and permanent neurological damage. The American Dietetic Association recommends supplemental vitamin B12 for vegans and lacto-ovo vegetarians during both pregnancy and lactation, simply to ensure that enough vitamin B12 is transferred prenatally and via human milk. Pregnant and lactating women who follow strict vegetarian or vegan diets should really consult with a pediatrician regarding vitamin B12 supplements for their infants and their children. So the RDI for vitamin B12 for all non-pregnant, non-lactating women past the age of 14 is 2.4. For a pregnant woman, it's 2.6 micrograms per day, and for lactating women, it's 2.8 micrograms a day. So vitamin B12 is a water-soluble vitamin that is naturally present in some foods, added to others, and is available as a dietary supplement as well as a prescription medication. Vitamin B12 exists in several forms and contains the mineral cobalt. So compounds with vitamin B12 activity are called cobalamins. Vitamin B12 plays a role in making DNA, and it also helps keep nerve cells and red blood cells healthy. Vitamin D is essential for strong bones because it helps the body use calcium from the diet. Traditionally, vitamin D deficiency has been associated with rickets, a disease in which the bone tissue doesn't properly mineralize, leading to soft bones and skeletal deformities. Increasingly, research is revealing the importance of vitamin D in protecting against a host of additional health problems, such as increased risk of death from cardiovascular disease, cognitive impairment in older adults, severe asthma in children, and cancer. Research suggests that vitamin D could play a role in the prevention and treatment of a number of different conditions, including type 1 and type 2 diabetes, hypertension, glucose intolerance, and multiple sclerosis. It should be noted that the vitamin D RDAs are set on the basis of minimal sun exposure and are 600 international units per day across the board. Pregnant women at increased risk of vitamin D deficiency include those with little exposure to sunlight, those with vegan diets, and those with darker skin. Some consider a vitamin D deficiency to be a sunlight deficiency. In the case of vitamin D, low levels of vitamin D during pregnancy can result in the baby experiencing a deficiency as the baby's body accumulates vitamin D prenatally. Vitamin D and calcium deficiency can result in a number of different conditions and diseases. This is going to be a long list. You don't have to write these down, but lately research has been really exploring the role that vitamin D has in multiple, disease states and conditions. So vitamin D and calcium deficiency, for example, may result in all cancers, but specifically breast cancer, colorectal cancer, and prostate cancer. The deficiency can also play a role in cardiovascular diseases and hypertension. It can play a role in type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, or obesity. It also has a role in immune responses in the area of asthma and other autoimmune diseases such as diabetes, inflammatory bowel and Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and systemic lupus. It also has a role to play in infectious diseases such as tuberculosis and influenza. Vitamin D is also being studied for its role in autism and cognitive function, as well as in depression and even physical performance. Vitamin D is commonly known for its role in skeletal health, in bone health. But again, the disorders and conditions that I mentioned previously, a lot of research is being undertaken right now to really explore vitamin D more completely, because as you can, tell from that list that I was sharing with you, that it has a role to play in many, many, many different disorders and conditions. Unless you count the sun, vitamin D is very limited in nature. Fortified foods provide most of the vitamin D in the American diet. For example, almost all of the U.S. milk supply is voluntarily fortified. Vitamin D is also found in fatty fish such as salmon, tuna, and mackerel, and these are some of the best sources. It's also found in beef liver, cheese, and egg yolks, but in a smaller quantity. And interestingly enough, mushrooms actually do provide some vitamin D. And in some mushrooms that are just coming out in the stores, the vitamin D content is actually being boosted by exposing these mushrooms to UV light. But that's just, again, a small, just a little side note. Almost all of the U.S. milk supply is fortified with 400 international units of vitamin D per quart. However, foods made from milk like cheese or ice cream, those usually aren't fortified. Now, vitamin D is added to many breakfast cereals and to certain brands of orange juice, yogurt, margarine, and soy beverages, but again, just check the label as well. And so it should be noted that the vitamin D RDAs are set on the basis of minimal sun exposure, and again, there's 600 international units across the board. And additionally, vitamin D is synthesized when UV sunlight hits your skin. Breast milk is low in vitamin K, and even breast milk from mothers who are taking vitamin K supplements is also low in vitamin K. Infants born in the U.S. are routinely given a vitamin K injection due to low infant stores at birth per the recommendation of the AAP. So only small amounts of vitamin K are transferred across the placenta during pregnancy. Without sufficient vitamin K, your blood simply doesn't clot, and infants can experience hemorrhagic disease, which is very rare but life-threatening. Vitamin K is known not only for its role in blood clotting, but it also influences bone health. There are two forms of the vitamin, one available primarily from leafy greens, and one that is synthesized in our GI systems from bacteria. So vitamin K is found in green leafy vegetables, such as spinach, kale, broccoli, and lettuce. It's also found in vegetable oils. It's found in some fruits, such as blueberries and figs, and it's also found in meat, cheese, eggs, and soybeans. During pregnancy, calcium is needed for the healthy development of a baby's teeth, bones, heart, nerves, and muscles. When a pregnant woman does not consume enough calcium, it is taken from her. It is taken from her bones for the baby. And it's important to consume adequate amounts of calcium daily before, during, and after pregnancy. Women between the age of 14 and 18 have additional requirements because they themselves are still increasing their own bone content. So as you can see, their requirements are 1,300 milligrams a day across the board, whether they're non-pregnant or pregnant or lactating, and 19 to 50-year-old women have a requirement, again, across the board of 1,000 milligrams a day. At least 3 daily servings of calcium-rich foods, such as low-fat or fat-free milk, yogurt, or cheese, or calcium-fortified plant-based beverages, cereals, and juices, is important. Just as a side note, a lactose intolerance and a milk allergy aren't the same thing. A lactose intolerance has to do with the body not having enough of the milk enzyme lactase to break down milk sugar, which is lactose, and this can lead to bloating, diarrhea, and other discomfort. For women with lactose intolerance, dairy products with less lactose, such as cheese, yogurt, or milk with added lactase, which is the enzyme that breaks down lactose, can be substituted for regular milk. And it is estimated that almost 25% of the U.S. population suffers from some degree of lactose intolerance. So, you will be coming across some clients with lactose intolerance. The intolerance is actually highly individualized. Some individuals can tolerate small amounts of lactose and others cannot tolerate it at all. So that's just something to keep in mind, that especially in this situation, no one is quite the same. Other popular milks, such as almond milk, may or may not have sufficient calcium depending on the fortification. So it is really important to read the labels. In terms of the milk allergy, a milk allergy has to do with another macronutrient entirely, the milk protein. Again, lactose intolerance concerns the milk sugar, whereas the milk allergy is concerned with the protein. Women with a milk allergy would not be able to consume most of the products intended for lactose intolerance because most of them still contain the milk protein that actually draws the allergic response. During pregnancy, calcium enjoys special prenatal absorption. There's increased intestinal absorption during pregnancy, and ingesting vitamin D along with a calcium supplement actually assists with maximum absorption and use. So most of the time, calcium supplements, as well as vitamin D supplements, are recommended. But for pregnant women who don't consume milk products, for example, due to a milk allergy or another reason, a calcium and vitamin D supplement would be especially recommended. And there is a table in your text that lists all sources of calcium, including which are the best calcium supplements to include. To improve absorption, one thing to remember is that calcium supplements can be divided into 2 or 3 doses and taken with meals. So good sources of calcium? Well, calcium is found in milk, yogurt, and cheese. And these are the main food sources of calcium for the majority of people in the United States. Kale, broccoli, and Chinese cabbage are adequate vegetable sources of calcium, and although spinach may have calcium, that calcium is really poorly absorbed. Fish with small bones that can be eaten, such as canned sardines, canned salmon, those are decent animal sources of calcium as well. So most grains, such as breads, pastas, and unfortified cereals, while they're not rich in calcium, they do add significant amounts of calcium to the diet simply because people eat them often or in really large amounts. Calcium is added to some breakfast cereals. It's also added to fruit juices and other soy and rice beverages, as well as tofu. Again, read the labels to find out which foods have a good source of calcium. Iodine is a vital component of two different thyroid hormones, and the mother's thyroid hormone levels do affect proper fetal growth and neurological development during pregnancy and after birth. And lately, we have seen some instances of an iodine deficiency. Iodine also has a role in metabolism, protein synthesis, enzymatic activity, and it also plays a role in fetal and infant skeletal and central nervous system development. The Institute of Medicine has set the RDA for iodine before pregnancy at 150 micrograms per day. During pregnancy, it bumps up to 220, and during breastfeeding, it jumps up to 290 per day. Because the diet of a pregnant or breastfeeding woman may not contain enough iodine, the American Thyroid Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics recommend that pregnant or breastfeeding women take a daily multivitamin or prenatal supplement every day containing 150 micrograms of iodine. Not all multivitamin prenatal supplements contain 150 micrograms of iodine. Therefore, advise women to check the nutrition label or have them speak with their healthcare provider about whether their multivitamin supplement or prenatal vitamin contains enough iodine. The DRIs for iron reflect a non-prenatal woman's need for additional iron due to the demands of menstruation, as well as for pregnancy and lactation. I included the male requirement for iron to demonstrate the difference because even as men have, generally speaking, increased muscle mass, their requirements are still lower. The Institute of Medicine notes that because the median intake of dietary iron by pregnant women is well below the EAR, pregnant women should have additional supplementation. As well, iron deficiency anemia is the most common nutrient deficiency found in the U.S. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans advises that women who are pregnant take an iron supplement when recommended by their OB or other healthcare provider. It adds that low intakes of iron are a public health concern for pregnant women. The ACOG recommended testing to determine whether supplementation is necessary. Healthy, non-anemic prenatal women surrender their iron via the placenta. They also store adequate iron stores to provide their baby via human milk with sufficient iron for the first several months, again, if they are healthy and non-anemic. And we will talk more specifically about this during the next module, Nutrition During Lactation. As you can see, through age 14 through 18, for a male, the amount of iron is only 11 milligrams a day. For a female, non-pregnant, non-lactating, it's 15 milligrams a day. For pregnancy, it jumps way up to 27 milligrams a day, and it drops back down to, during lactation, 10 milligrams a day. From 19 through 50, as you can see for men, the requirement is 8 milligrams a day. For women, it jumps up to 18 milligrams a day, non-pregnant, non-lactating. And for a pregnant 19 to 50-year-old, that remains constant at 27 milligrams a day. For a lactating woman who is 19 to 50, the requirement is 9 milligrams a day. Iron is a mineral that the body needs for growth and development. Your body uses iron to make hemoglobin, a protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen from the lungs to all parts of the body, as well as myoglobin, a protein that provides oxygen to muscles. Your body also needs iron to make some hormones and connective tissue. Prenatally, iron is crucial for supporting the growing baby, the placenta, and the red cell mass. Maternal iron deficiency is the most common nutritional deficiency during pregnancy. Pregnant women need at least 27 milligrams of iron each day, which is double the RDI of pre-pregnant or lactating women. Iron deficiency during pregnancy increases the risk of maternal and infant mortality, premature birth, and low birth weight. Of additional concern is that prenatal and breastfeeding women may already be tired and low levels of iron can affect the oxygen carrying capability of the blood. This would result in additional fatigue above and beyond what they are already experiencing. An anemic woman is susceptible to possible blood loss or surgical risk. Low intakes also increase her infant's risk of low birth weight, premature birth, low iron stores, and impaired cognitive and behavioral development. So animal sources of iron include meat, chicken, fish, pork, turkey, and eggs. And the iron that's found in animal products, that's heme iron, and that's actually more easily absorbed than the iron that is from the plant sources, which is less easily absorbed. Plant sources of non-heme iron include beans, fortified cereal and bread, spinach, and nuts and dried fruit. For vegetarians and women who don't eat a lot of meat, increasing iron absorption by combining plant-based sources of iron with vitamin C-rich foods is suggested. For example, spinach salad with mandarin oranges or cereal with strawberries. The iron from spinach and the vitamin C from the mandarin oranges. Cereal would have the iron and strawberries would have the vitamin C. And again, it's that combination of the vitamin C with the iron that enhances absorption. Also, heme iron from any source in combination with a non-heme plant source of iron also helps iron absorption as well. It should be noted that calcium interferes with iron absorption, and likewise iron interferes with calcium absorption. Iron deficiency anemia is most common in populations with low socioeconomic status, multiple gestations, and limited education. One additional note about iron, for iron supplementation when recommended, tolerance may be difficult for some women due to heartburn, nausea, constipation, and diarrhea. And so to ease discomfort, it could be suggested that women take these tablets at night prior to bed so that they can sleep through the discomfort, or they can take it with juice or water. Iron supplements should not be taken with milk as absorption is decreased. Additional suggestions about adequate or additional fiber may be needed if women are struggling with constipation because of the iron supplementation. Healthy food choices during pregnancy are important for both mother and baby. Practical and specific food suggestions are key. Helping clients understand the whys behind dietary suggestions is important and actually helps with compliance. You may provide the most spot-on, helpful suggestions, but if they aren't practiced, nothing has been accomplished. Helping families understand that healthy eating is compatible with limited budgets is also important. Healthy eating patterns offer a stronger pathway to positive pregnancy outcomes and can include special diets like vegetarianism. Empowering women to eat well and take care of themselves and their families leads to future generational well-being. So here is our next test your knowledge slide. True or false? Folate's most well-known role is in the prevention of neural tube defects. True. Which of the nutrients below may be lacking in the diet of a vegetarian? So these 4 nutrients may be lacking in the diet of a vegetarian: protein, vitamin B12, calcium, and iron. So in this next section, we'll be looking at a variety of prenatal nutrition considerations. We'll be taking a closer look at protein, healthy fats, whole grains, gluten, vegetarianism, eating disorders, breastfeeding during pregnancy, foods to limit or avoid, how culture plays a role in nutrition during pregnancy. We'll be also looking at alcohol, caffeine, allergenic foods, artificial sweeteners, supplements, additional risks, and socioeconomics. So let's start off with protein. Protein needs are higher during times of growth and development, like pregnancy. Quality sources of protein are key. In terms of recommendations, when choosing protein, better sources of protein include calcium-rich protein that can be found from milk, cheese, and yogurt. Not only are dairy foods like milk, cheese, and yogurt excellent sources of protein, but they also contain valuable calcium, and many are fortified with vitamin D. Choose skim or low-fat dairy to keep bones and teeth strong, help prevent osteoporosis, but keep calories in check. Iron-rich protein found in lean meats, Poultry, eggs, beans, and peanut butter is also important. Again, making quality choices, making lean choices most of the time, will help keep prenatal weight to a good level. Healthy fats. Polyunsaturated fats, found mostly in vegetable oils, help lower both blood cholesterol levels and triglyceride levels, especially when you substitute them for saturated fats. One type of polyunsaturated fat are the omega-3 fatty acids, whose potential heart health benefits have justifiably received a lot of attention. Omega-3s are found in fatty fish like salmon, trout, catfish, mackerel, and others. The types found in fish, we'll call them DHA and EPA for the purposes of this course, seem to have the strongest health benefits and have powerful roles during pregnancy and lactation. Another form known as ALA is found in vegetable oils, flaxseed, walnuts or walnut oil, and dark leafy vegetables like spinach. So the different types of omega-3 fatty acids can be confusing. There are the fish oils, those contain DHA and EPA, and then there are the plant sources, which includes the ALA. ALA is converted into an omega-3 fatty acid in the body. For the purposes of this course, just keep in mind that studies have generally used fish oils as the source for omega-3 fatty acids. While plant sources with ALA may have some of the same benefits, less is known about them. For now, fish oils with DHA and EPA have the more established benefit. ALA is turned into DHA and EPA in the body. For omega-3s, you can find enriched milk and eggs and bread and breakfast bars. Check product labels to make sure. Fish does contain the most effective, longer chain type of omega-3s. The American Heart Association recommends eating 2 servings of fatty fish each week. A cautionary note, pregnant women and younger children should stay away from shark, swordfish, and king mackerel because these bigger species fish tend to present more of a risk due to their higher mercury levels. Plant sources of unsaturated fat are a good substitute for saturated or trans fat. However, they won't have the same effect as on cardiovascular disease as fatty fish will. And keep in mind that cooking style does matter. Frying up your trout is not exactly heart healthy. Other options like steaming, broiling, barbecuing, stir-frying or sautéing, grilling, poaching, or baking with a little added fat should be the go-to method for healthy cooking techniques. So a monounsaturated fat is another one of the healthy fats. Monounsaturated fats are part of the Mediterranean diet, and they're found in plant foods such as nuts, avocados, and vegetable oils. These are another good source of healthy fats. So all grains start life off as whole grains. In their natural state growing in the fields, whole grains are the entire seed of the plant. So this seed, also called a kernel, is made up of 3 edible parts: the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. And these are protected by an inedible husk that protects the kernel from assaults by sunlight, pests, water, as well as disease. A grain is considered to be a whole grain as long as all 3 original parts, the bran, the germ, and the endosperm, are present in the same proportions as when the grain was growing in the field. So constipation is a common complication during pregnancy, and fiber, found in whole grains along with other foods like fruits, veggies, beans, and legumes, can assist with alleviating that condition. Total dietary fiber intake should be 25 to 30 grams a day from food, not supplements. Currently, dietary fiber intakes among adults average about 15 grams a day, which is only about half of what's recommended. Fiber also plays a role in stabilizing blood glucose. When fiber's around, blood glucose tends to not rise quite as rapidly and stays a bit more stable. Choosing brown bread doesn't mean that you're necessarily choosing a whole wheat bread. Just like choosing a loaf of white bread doesn't mean that it's not whole wheat or not made with refined white flour. Finding whole grain breads requires reading the label, and any bread labeled whole wheat must be made with 100% whole wheat flour. Also, even if bread labels advertise 7-grain or multigrain, they aren't necessarily whole grain products. Again, check the nutrition facts panel, read the label to verify that whole wheat flour is listed as the first ingredient, and find loaves made mostly with whole wheat or other whole grain flour. A family's cooking style can be modified to include more whole grains and boost the fiber content of meals pretty easily. Switching out brown rice or even half of brown rice for white rice is a great way to go. Having a vegetable stir fry or making a sandwich out of a whole wheat pita is, again, another way to load up on fiber. You can fortify mixed dishes with high fiber ingredients like adding bran or oatmeal to meatloaf. Children tend to be a little less receptive to either whole grain pasta or brown rice. One thing that you can always suggest is to try half and half. That way you kind of keep the original flavor and texture of these products, but you still add in a little bit more. And families can either continue making the changeover to all whole grains or all brown rice, or they can, keep doing half and half. Either way, they're still getting more fiber in their diets. So for snacking, it seems too good to be true, but you can believe it. Popcorn is a whole grain. So if you are looking to have a client increase their fiber, this is a good way to go. Popcorn has complex carbs and fiber. 3 cups of popcorn is 1 serving. So you can have a lot of popcorn, a really substantial portion, and it'll last you a while. And it's a really good source of fiber without adding a lot of calories. Some additional ways to increase your fiber intake, well, you can begin with breakfast. You can choose a fiber-rich, whole grain breakfast cereal, oatmeal, or toast. You can check the grams of fiber per serving. More fiber will keep you feeling fuller longer, which can help pregnant women slow their weight gain down if necessary. Choosing whole grains over refined items when selecting breads, hamburger or hot dog buns, bagels, tortillas, pastas, and other grains is important. Another way to increase fiber is to choose whole grains over refined. So when selecting breads, hamburger buns, bagels, tortillas, pastas, and other grains, make sure that you choose whole grains. So to increase your whole wheat, another way to go is to experiment with different grains. You can try buckwheat, bulgur, millet, quinoa, sorghum, whole rye, and even barley. These are all excellent sources of fiber. There are other new whole grains that in the US for the mainstream population we're just not as familiar with, but these ancient grains are becoming more widely available, and they can be a really good choice to get more complex carbs in your diet, although sometimes these may cost a bit more. Popcorn is an excellent snack. Remember, 3 cups of whole grain air pop popcorn is only about 95 calories, but you're getting almost 10% of the fiber that you need during the day. To get more whole wheat in your diet, there's also 100% whole wheat or rye crackers. Beans and lentils are also an excellent source of fiber. Whether you choose kidney, white, black, pinto, garbanzo, beans have a lot of fiber. And while you're on that aisle in the grocery store, think about picking up some lentils or even split peas as another way to add even more complex carbs into your diet. I've mentioned this earlier, but pasta has some delicious whole wheat varieties. And if kids are picky, a combination of, regular pasta and whole wheat pasta is one way to go. Think half and half in a variety of ways, not just pasta. So even with a sandwich, if one slice of bread is a white bread and the other is a whole wheat, that's still better than 2 slices of white. And with cereals, you can also mix cereals together as well. Even having one of their familiar cereals mixed in with a whole grain cereal is a way to go. A very prevalent and widespread diet trend is to be gluten-free. Gluten is a protein found in many grains, and it just provides structure. Gluten is found in wheat, rye, barley, bulgur, farro, kamut, spelt, and even triticale. So who really needs to go gluten-free? Well, anyone with celiac disease, which is a disorder of malabsorption. Also, someone who is gluten sensitive, which is a condition that doctors once dismissed, but now acknowledge as authentic. Before someone follows a gluten-free diet, though, the first step is to be tested for celiac disease. If someone legitimately reacts poorly to gluten with symptoms such as diarrhea, stomach upset, abdominal pain, and bloating, they need to see a doctor to be tested for celiac disease. With celiac disease, when gluten is consumed, the lining of the small intestine actually becomes inflamed and can become damaged. That makes it harder for the body to absorb nutrients, along with causing severe discomfort. The damage and the lack of nutrient absorption can lead to malnutrition and weight loss. An estimated 2 million individuals have celiac disease, meaning there are breastfeeding moms out there following this diet. Many others believe they have gluten sensitivity and have been successful at eliminating it from their diets with positive outcomes. It is easier now to be gluten-free, although reading labels and being educated is essential. People on a gluten-free diet, or people who are responsible for a gluten-free diet for their family, need to have a sharp eye. Some ingredient red flags are obvious, like wheat gluten, barley, or rye. Keep in mind some foods have stealth or hidden gluten. Two terms to watch for are malt, which means it's made from barley, and hydrolyzed vegetable protein, which often contains wheat. And while oats do not contain gluten, they may also increase symptoms, including abdominal pain, bloating, and diarrhea. Again, in these situations, an RDN consult is preferred, simply because pregnant women with undiagnosed or untreated celiac disease are at increased risk for spontaneous abortion, miscarriage, low birth weight, small for gestational age babies, stillbirth, and other pregnancy-related complications. While compliance with a gluten-free diet results in outcomes similar to those that don't need to be gluten-free. Careful planning is essential because a gluten-free diet may be low in carbohydrates, iron, folic acid, niacin, calcium, phosphorus, zinc, and fiber. RDNs may recommend whole or enriched gluten-free grains and products such as brown rice, wild rice, buckwheat, quinoa, amaranth, millet, or sorghum. Women who are newly diagnosed or unaccustomed to high-fiber diets should introduce these foods gradually to their diet. If the usual dietary intake is nutritionally inadequate and cannot be improved through eating habits, then a daily gluten-free prenatal multivitamin and mineral supplement should be recommended. When it comes to gluten, it's not just about avoiding bread, although that would be one of the first items to cross off a shopping list, unless it's gluten-free bread. Perhaps the most difficult step in a gluten-free diet is bidding farewell to bread, including white, wheat, marble, and rye. Also off limits are bagels, muffins, croissants, hamburger buns, hot dog buns, scones, and even pizza. There are alternatives, and more are appearing on the market every day. People do have gluten-free bread choices. Many health food stores and major supermarkets now carry a wide range of gluten-free products, including an assortment of breads. These are often made with rice or potato flour instead of wheat products. Just check the label to make sure that it says 100% gluten-free. Traditional breakfast cereals are another casualty for people on a gluten-free diet. Cream of wheat is obviously out, but so are many other favorites. Cheerios contains wheat starch, while Frosted Flakes uses malt flavoring. Again, read the list of ingredients and avoid any cereal containing wheat, barley, rye, or malt. Corn and rice-based cereals are good breakfast alternatives, but it's crucial to read labels carefully as many contain malt. Again, check your supermarket's health foods section for gluten-free products. One thing to keep in mind is that a stroll down the gluten-free aisle at the local supermarket can quickly destroy a weekly food budget. For example, most pasta is made out of wheat, so you'll need to avoid regular spaghetti, including macaroni, shells, all of the pastas when you're on a gluten-free diet. There are different pastas available that are made from rice, corn, quinoa, even some pastas that are made from different beans and legumes. You can say hi to filling and very flexible rice and potatoes because those are gluten-free. Rice and potatoes are not only gluten-free, but they're an excellent choice because they are very budget-friendly as well. If someone is really mourning the loss of pasta, here's a secret. Just think of rice noodles. They're a good substitute for wheat pasta. Other considerations? Well, keep in mind that breaded foods and even crackers may contain gluten as well. Again, it's important to read the label. Even traditional celebratory foods like cakes, pies, cookies, and other treats, if they contain gluten, need to be avoided. Unfortunately for fans of the six-pack, most beers are made with barley malt. There are some gluten-free beers. However, keep in mind that this is the lecture on nutrition during pregnancy, so no amount of alcohol is recommended during this time. So for a gluten-free diet, there are a lot of delicious foods to enjoy, such as eggs, fish, lean meats, fruits, veggies, and lean milk products. Even if you're using frozen or canned fruits and vegetables, check for additives that may contain gluten. The same goes for processed cheese spreads and flavored yogurts. Eating out is a whole nother issue. And again, working closely with an RDN or a degree nutritionist can really help individuals navigate this health condition. Foods recommended for those following a gluten-free diet are similar to healthful foods suggested for the general population. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, low-fat dairy, eggs, plant-based proteins such as beans, nuts, and seeds, fish, and lean cuts of poultry and meat are important. The only difference for those following a gluten-free diet is that they need to steer clear of wheat, rye, and barley when making their choices. Focusing on naturally gluten-free foods and limiting highly processed specialty items is the key to healthful and cost-effective meal planning. For meal planning, make gluten-free versions of convenience foods, including breads, baked goods, sauces, dressings, and soups. Cook in large quantities and refrigerator freeze until needed. Save specialty gluten-free items for true convenience needs and special occasions. When possible, buy in bulk. You can plan gluten-free meals for the entire family and avoid purchasing both regular and gluten-free versions of the same foods. You can also check out your local supermarket to see if they have a registered dietitian nutritionist. Oftentimes, if they have one on staff or one that does grocery store tours on occasion, they can help you share gluten-free recipes and steer you toward more inexpensive purchases. So the bottom line for clients that are gluten-free, with a few tips and some planning, it is possible to prepare healthful, gluten-free meals without breaking the bank. So testing your knowledge. A prenatal client tells you her doctor mentioned that her lab values indicated she has iron deficiency anemia. What suggestions can you offer to help increase iron absorption? So, specific examples working with her current eating patterns to increase iron from animal sources, such as beef, chicken, fish, pork, turkey, and eggs. She can increase sources from plants, such as beans, legumes, spinach, nuts, peanut butter. And keep in mind that combinations of vitamin C and iron-rich foods are important. Things like spaghetti paired with meat sauce, carne asada and salsa, or an omelet with vitamin C-rich veggies. She should watch her calcium intake and make sure that it's not excessive. And she can also look to take a prenatal supplement. What recommendations would you give if a woman did not want to use prenatal supplements? Eating more food to meet energy needs and the increased absorption of nutrients that occurs during pregnancy are usually enough to meet the needs for most nutrients when good food choices are made. However, vitamin and mineral supplementation is routine, and supplementation helps cover those nutrition gaps. Many women consume less than the recommended amounts of calcium, magnesium, zinc, vitamin B6, and folate. It is important to emphasize that vitamin and mineral supplements cannot replace a healthy diet. Going vegetarian can be delicious. There is plenty of variety. As I'm sure you know, vegetarians do not eat meat, fish, or poultry. Most vegetarians receive their protein from dairy, legumes, nuts, and carbohydrates. There are different types of vegetarians. We've mentioned a few of these in previous slides. A vegan enjoys plant sources only. A lacto-vegetarian is a vegetarian that would include milk and milk products like cheese, yogurt, or ice cream in their diet. An ovo-vegetarian would include eggs. And someone that is a lacto-ovo-vegetarian would include milk products and eggs. A fruitarian would include fruits, nuts, olive oil, and honey. So the choice to be vegetarian can be due to many, many reasons. Culture, health, economics, the environment, and other philosophical values can all be different reasons for choosing this eating style. Going light on meat was the norm a few generations ago, when meat often was consumed in current side dish portions, while nutrient-rich beans and lentils, vegetables, and whole grains took center stage. Vegetarians that include certain animal products such as milk or eggs can easily provide the nutrients needed for pregnancy and breastfeeding, and the majority of the planet consumes this type of diet. A balanced vegetarian diet can be healthy and provide additional benefits, such as decreasing the likelihood of excess weight gain due to fewer calories and fat. Constipation, a common side effect of pregnancy, can also be reduced due to the extra fiber found in vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. The difficulty arises when a vegetarian does not manage her diet well. Well, I have found that most vegetarians are comfortable and knowledgeable about obtaining a balanced diet with adequate protein. Highly restrictive vegetarians, or those following other strict regimes, may benefit from an RDN and should keep their healthcare provider informed of her decision. If a woman is not consuming vitamin D fortified milk or dairy products, and she has little sun exposure, she may be at risk for a vitamin D deficiency. Most supplements will assist with obtaining the necessary amount. There are 5 specific nutrients that vegetarians need to be careful of: protein, vitamin B12, vitamin D, calcium, and iron. So for protein, women need to seek out protein from legumes, beans, carbohydrates, as well as nuts and seeds. If they do include dairy and eggs in their diet, that does make things a little easier. However, it is certainly feasible to be vegan and still obtain adequate protein. If a woman is not consuming vitamin D fortified milk or dairy products and she has little sun exposure, she may be at risk for vitamin D deficiency. And so that would be a situation where a supplement would be recommended. Another nutrient to look out for is vitamin B12. In the situation of a strict vegan or someone else who is following a fairly restrictive diet, again, a referral to an RDN or a degreed nutritionist might be something that is important, so that someone can really go through and examine her diet carefully and make sure that she is obtaining enough of these nutrients. So let's spend a little bit of time talking specifically about vitamin B12. As you'll remember, vitamin B12 is a water-soluble vitamin that's naturally present in some foods and added to others, and it's also available as a dietary supplement and a prescription medication. To review, vitamin B12 is required for proper red blood cell formation, neurological function, and DNA synthesis. So, as you can see from the description, vitamin B12 is a pretty important nutrient. You don't want a deficiency in any nutrient, but this is definitely one that you do not want a deficiency in. Strict vegetarians and vegans are at much greater risk than lacto-ovo-vegetarians and non-vegetarians of developing vitamin B12 deficiency, just because their natural food sources of vitamin B12 are pretty limited to animal foods. Fortified breakfast cereals are one of the few sources of vitamin B12 from plants and can be used as a dietary source of vitamin B for strict vegetarians and vegans. Vitamin B12, as a water-soluble vitamin, does cross the placenta during pregnancy and is present in breast milk. Undetected and untreated vitamin B12 deficiency in infants can result in severe and permanent neurological damage. The American Dietetic Association recommends supplemental vitamin B12 for vegans and lacto-ovo-vegetarians both during pregnancy and lactation in order to ensure that enough vitamin B12 is transferred to the fetus and infant. Pregnant and lactating women who follow strict vegetarian or vegan diets should consult with a pediatrician regarding vitamin B12 supplements for their infants and children. So this slide was included just to highlight that vitamin B12 is really exclusively found in animal sources. So this is what a sample menu might look like for a teen lacto-ovo-vegetarian. Remember that teens less than 4 years from menarche have additional calorie and protein needs themselves. In the situation of a teen, and in the situation of especially a teen vegetarian, I would refer them to a registered dietitian nutritionist just to make sure that she is covering all her bases nutritionally. Now, we talked about disordered eating a little bit back in the beginning of this module. And eating disorders are a group of conditions marked by an unhealthy relationship with food. The 3 main types are anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder. Eating disorders are a serious medical problem that can have long-term health consequences if left untreated. So, anorexia nervosa is the deliberate restriction of calories to the point of starvation. Bulimia nervosa is characterized by overeating, followed by purging, either by vomiting, laxative, diuretics, as well as extreme exercise. Women suffering from these conditions tend to breastfeed for shorter durations, and breastfeeding has no protective effect against binge eating or purging. Binge eating, which is a condition in which a child or an adult may gorge rapidly on food, but without purging, is another one of the disordered eating situations. In children and teens, eating disorders can overlap. For example, some children alternate between periods of anorexia and bulimia. Eating disorders typically develop during adolescence or early adulthood. However, they can start in childhood too. Females are much more vulnerable, even though males are impacted as well. Only an estimated 5 to 15% of people with anorexia or bulimia are males. With binge eating, the number rises to 35%. So what causes eating disorders? Well, doctors aren't certain what truly triggers an eating disorder. They suspect a combination of biological, behavioral, and social factors. For instance, young people may be influenced by cultural images that favor bodies too underweight to be healthy. Also, many children and teens with eating disorders struggle with one or more of the following problems: stress, fear of becoming overweight, feelings of helplessness, and low self-esteem. To cope with these issues, children and teens may adopt harmful eating habits, and in fact, eating disorders often go hand in hand with other psychiatric problems, such as anxiety disorders, depression, and substance abuse. Eating disorders in children and teens can lead to a host of serious physical problems and even death, and there is little data on bulimic individuals. If you suspect or recognize that a client has an eating disorder, it is imperative that a gentle referral be given. Even among nutrition professionals and RDNs, eating disorders are a specialty. Many RDNs who do not specialize in the area refer to ones that do. Keep in mind that there is a team of healthcare providers helping an individual navigate through an eating disorder. And keep in mind that eating disorders are less of a nutrition issue than an emotional or physical one. So, breastfeeding during pregnancy. As I have mentioned a few times, approximately half of the pregnancies in the U.S. are unexpected. Often, women who are breastfeeding one little one find themselves pregnant with another. So, while nutrient needs are increased during the second and third trimesters, the doubling of supplements are not indicated. And although in this situation of a woman breastfeeding during pregnancy, they need to be in close communication with their healthcare provider, and the following factors should be considered, such as the frequency of breastfeeding, the age, and the health condition of mom and baby. Sometimes there is spontaneous weaning, and women should be kindly prepared that that might happen. So in looking at foods to limit or avoid, there are a number of considerations when addressing the prenatal or lactating woman's diet, many of which we've covered. In the next few minutes, we'll talk a little bit about cultural avoidance, flavor, common food allergens, alcohol, caffeine, foodborne illness, and fish. So first, let's talk about cultural avoidance. So while most mothers can eat a wide variety of food, there are many cultures around the planet that have specific foods they avoid for a number of reasons. Some cultures embrace certain foods that are shunned by others. Some foods that are avoided may be high in fiber, acidic fruits, gas-forming vegetables and beans, milk, certain spices, or even chocolate. Some mothers believe that certain foods affect her baby negatively. It is fine to restrict or omit food for a certain period of time, and usually that food can be offered to the baby at a later time without any issues. All food is generally fine for the mom to eat. If she feels strongly about avoiding a certain food, like I said earlier, that's fine. She just needs to ensure that she's still receiving a balanced diet. No amount of alcohol is safe during pregnancy, and moderate consumption of alcohol may lead to slow brain growth, and large amounts of alcohol delays brain growth more significantly and can limit parental effectiveness. Excessive amounts of alcohol can lead to life-threatening conditions. Caffeine. Although there have been many studies on whether caffeine increases the risk of miscarriage, the results are unclear. Most experts believe that consuming less than 200 milligrams of caffeine a day during pregnancy is safe. That is equal to 1 12-ounce cup of coffee. Remember that caffeine is also found in teas, colas, and chocolate. Make sure you count these sources in your total caffeine for the day. Keep in mind, thank you Starbucks, that not all coffee is created equal in terms of caffeine content. Many brands have significantly higher caffeine and can really stimulate the baby. Caffeine content varies wildly. One cup of coffee may have 200 milligrams, while another one may have 450 milligrams. Coffee has the most caffeine, followed by certain energy drinks, sodas, black, and green teas. Chocolate has caffeine as well, but in much smaller amounts. Even some medications contain caffeine. Water is always the preferred beverage, and a woman's thirst can generally be her guide. With the exception of the first morning urination, if urine is pale yellow, that should indicate adequate hydration. Consider herbal teas as an option, as they are generally caffeine-free and harmless to the infant. There are herbs that should be avoided, such as chaparral, comfrey, germander, pennyroyal, and blue cohosh, as they are detrimental to an infant. Many of these herbs are not regulated by the FDA, and often the origin and conditions of growth are unknown. In the past, some parents have avoided allergenic foods when there was a family history. However, most foods are considered acceptable unless they cause allergic reactions in the parent or the mom consumes them in excessive amounts. Highly allergenic foods like milk, eggs, wheat, and peanut butter do not necessarily need to be avoided unless the mother is allergic herself. The baby may or may not be allergic. Other nutritious options should be chosen. Artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners can be used wisely, moderately, unless the mom or infant has PKU. Phenylketonuria, commonly known as PKU, is an inherited disorder that increases the levels of a substance called phenylalanine in the blood. Phenylalanine is a building block of proteins, an amino acid, that is obtained through the diet. It's found in all proteins and some artificial sweeteners. In that case, aspartame should be avoided, as it breaks down into phenylalanine and aspartic acid. So phenylalanine actually builds up in the body, cannot be metabolized, and can cause developmental delay. Products containing these amino acids carry a warning label. Keep in mind that artificial sweeteners have not contributed to the reduction of obesity, but they can be used cautiously. In today's market, oversupplementation of certain nutrients is possible and even easy. Women in all life stages need to be aware of what they are taking. It would not be difficult to overconsume to the point of toxicity certain vitamins, minerals, or other nutrients when considering the overfortification and supplementation of energy bars and drinks. If a woman is taking a supplement as well as an energy drink or two or an energy bar, well, if this is done habitually, she may approach oversupplementation. Read the labels. Some drinks, some energy bars offer 300, 500, 750, 1,000, 2,000, even over 8,000% of the daily value of certain nutrients. You multiply that by 1 or 2, the more is more thought is not true when it comes to nutrition, especially nutritional supplements. Toxicity is definitely possible in some of these situations. So a note about teens. So other risk factors for teen moms, especially those that are less than 4 years from the onset of menstruation, may have diets that are low in iron, calcium, and other nutrients, either because of poor intake, simply following a predictable American diet, and or socioeconomic or familial issues. Plus, they are growing rapidly along with the demands of pregnancy. Young teens need to account for their own growth needs as well as those of their baby. They also are at higher risk due to their lack of nutrition knowledge. Now let's circle back around and look at diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is caused by the pancreas not producing enough insulin. Insulin is typically taken. A special diet is followed where carbohydrates, especially simple carbohydrates, are monitored, as well as other factors. These other factors to consider in a diet are protein, fiber, and fats. Usually, individuals with type 1 diabetes initially consult with registered dietitian nutritionists or other healthcare providers like diabetic educators. Type 2 diabetes, which is becoming more and more prevalent with the increasing obesity epidemic, is where insulin is insufficient and glucose is not taken into the cells properly. Weight loss, diet, and sometimes medicine are used to treat the disease. Gestational diabetes can develop during pregnancy and may be a combination of type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Maternal obesity, excessive weight gain, and high intake of saturated fat are all factors in pre-pregnancy that have been associated with the development of glucose abnormalities during pregnancy. Generally, this disease responds to dietary modification and/or medication, possibly including insulin. And insulin can be oral or it can be injected. There are also other medications to consider. For women with gestational diabetes, improved outcomes are observed with dietary intake limiting carbohydrates to 45% of energy, but further research is needed regarding goals for protein, fat, and fiber. For women without contraindications, moderate physical activity for a minimum of 30 minutes, 3 times a week, may help improve glycemic control during pregnancy. Blood glucose monitoring improves glycemic control in gestational diabetes. When implemented early, within a week of diagnosis, with a minimum of 3 visits, medical nutrition therapy is associated with better outcomes, including decreased hospital admissions, insulin use, and complications and increased likelihood of normal fetal and placental growth. Lack of glucose control can result in macrosomic infants. Recent studies indicate that obesity during pregnancy, resulting in large for gestational age infants, can have serious consequences later in life for both mom, baby, and future generations. Overweight infants tend to be overweight children with higher risks for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and asthma, and social and emotional issues later on in life. There are also issues with sleeping, as well as with self-esteem. Gastrointestinal diseases such as Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, bypass, or bariatric patients should be evaluated by an RDN. A referral to an RDN is also appropriate for PKU or other metabolic diseases. We will discuss these conditions more in depth in the Nutrition During Lactation module. The takeaway from this slide is that these situations are those in which an RDN or other certified diabetic educator is usually indicated. In this slide, we'll cover socioeconomics. Higher levels of education tend to be consistent with healthier diets. Food insecurity can result from a lack of money, transportation, a lack of facilities to prepare and store food, a lack of fresh or economically feasible produce, and a lack of knowledge. There are many social services available and can include the WIC program, CalFresh, which is known as Food Stamps or SNAP in other parts of the U.S., food banks, food swaps, economic food purchasing, and a 1 Degree, which is a program in Los Angeles and San Francisco. 1 Degree is kind of a Yelp for social services. If you go online, you can set up an account, and it's a very interactive and user-friendly program that really can link consumers with social services. In addition, many college campuses, including CSUN, has a lot of social services available. CSUN has a food bank, and it also has a WIC program. So for physical activity guidelines, adults need at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity each week, as well as muscle strengthening exercises on 2 or more days each week. Children ages 6 to 17 need at least 60 minutes of physical activity per day, including aerobic, muscle strengthening, and bone strengthening activities. Pregnant women are encouraged to participate in at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity spread throughout the week, or 30 minutes of moderately intense exercise on most days of the week, with their doctor's knowledge and approval. There are a variety of influencers when it comes to food selection. We've talked a little bit about culture, Keep in mind cultural and familial patterns are strong. Availability of nutrition information, family stress, level of education, availability of food storage, as well as transportation, shopping habits, the availability of a garden. Well, there are a number of factors that come into play when considering food selection and availability. You may also have heard of food deserts as well as food swamps. Many times in an area where low income is predominant, you come into two different situations. There may be a food desert where there is a lack of available fresh produce, as well as a food swamp where there is an overabundance of fast food restaurants and convenience markets where they don't really have a lot of fresh produce or other healthy options. Food safety during pregnancy is important. Pregnant women can get food poisoning just like anyone else. However, food poisoning in a pregnant woman can cause serious problems for both her and her baby. Vomiting and diarrhea can cause a body to lose too much water and can disrupt the body's chemical balance. Food safety is critical during pregnancy as well as lactation. Leftovers should be heated thoroughly, and certain foods that may contain microbes should be avoided. These include deli meats, hot dogs, dry sausage, unless those are reheated to steaming, smoked seafood, raw or undercooked meat, seafood, chicken, eggs, pate, meat spreads, and raw sprouts should also be avoided. Unpasteurized food items like juice or dairy, or soft cheeses like feta, brie, camembert, blue-veined, queso fresco, and panela should not be eaten. Safe kitchen principles like separating raw from cooked foods and hand and utensil sanitation is important. Gardening is fine, but even then, gloves should be worn. It's just better to be safe than sorry. During pregnancy, all raw and undercooked seafood, eggs, and meat should be avoided, including sushi made with raw fish. Cooked sushi is fine. In addition, follow these 4 steps for food safety. Clean. Wash your hands with soap and water before and after handling raw food. This is safe for everybody. Washing fruits and vegetables under running tap water before eating, cutting, or cooking is also critical. Keeping the kitchen clean and washing utensils, countertops, and cutting boards with soap and water after handling, and that should be hot water after handling and preparing uncooked foods, is also critical. Sanitizing cutting boards by applying a solution of 1 teaspoon liquid chlorine bleach per gallon of water is also important. Allowing the surface to air dry is important as well. The second principle of food safety is separate. Keep raw meat, poultry, eggs, and seafood and their juices away from ready-to-eat food. Separate raw meat, poultry, and seafood from produce in your shopping cart by placing them in plastic bags. Keep raw meat, poultry, and seafood on a plate, in a container, or in a sealed plastic bag in the refrigerator. Use a separate cutting board for raw meat, poultry, and seafood. Never put cooked food back on the same plate that previously held raw food unless the plate has been washed in hot, soapy water. Do not use sauce used to marinate raw food on cooked food unless it's boiled first. Cook. Use a food thermometer to check doneness of meat, poultry, seafood, and egg products. These items should be cooked to a safe minimum temperature. And you can see www.foodsafety.gov/keep/charts/min-temp for specific recommendations. Always place the food thermometer in the thickest part of the food, away from bone, fat, and gristle. And finally, chill. Keep your refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below, and the freezer at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Thaw food in the refrigerator, microwave, or in cold, not hot water. Do not leave food at room temperature more than 2 hours, or an hour when the temperature is above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Meat and poultry defrosted in the refrigerator must be refrozen before or after cooking. If thawed in the microwave or cold water, cook before refreezing. Only buy eggs from a refrigerator or refrigerated case. Store eggs in the refrigerator in their original carton and use within 3 to 5 weeks. When selecting pre-cut produce, choose only those items that are refrigerated or surrounded by ice, and keep them refrigerated at home to maintain both quality and safety. Fish. Fish is an excellent source of protein and healthy fats, but some fish contain harmful chemicals like mercury and pesticides. Mercury can damage the nervous system. Shark, swordfish, tilefish, and king mackerel may be high in mercury and should be avoided. If tuna is your client's fish of choice, chunk-like canned tuna should be chosen. This has less mercury than other types of canned tuna or tuna steaks. A variety of other fish, no more than 1 pound or 16 ounces a week, or 2 6-ounce cans of chunk light tuna can be consumed. A combo of 1 can of tuna and 8 ounces of fish also works. Your text lists 12 ounces as the upper limit. Herbal remedies and supplements. Any herbal teas, herbs, and home remedies that a client would like to take medicinally should be discussed with a healthcare provider. As mentioned earlier, some can be toxic and unsafe, and your text has excellent lists. So on this Test Your Knowledge slide, the question is, what are the guidelines for prenatal physical activity? At least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity spread throughout the week, or 30 minutes of moderately intense exercise on most days of the week. How much alcohol is safe to consume during pregnancy? Well, I'm not even going to wait 10 seconds on this one because the answer, as we all know, is none. So as we close today, just wanted to leave you with the thought that every pregnant uterus is a potential center for excellence. And in the slides following, just like in the Basic Nutrition and Education module, I have included a number of quality, reliable resources for you to refer to. From government agencies to journals to universities, consumer groups, professional organizations, and volunteer groups, there are many places to obtain dependable information. Pregnancy and lactation are milestones in a woman's life where she may be more receptive to nutrition education, and being a positive influencer by being ready with sound nutrition suggestions will benefit mom, baby, and the entire family, hopefully, for generations to come. Remember that specific, small, obtainable, and practical suggestions go a long way toward success, and that one victory can often lead to another. Referring to a registered dietitian nutritionist or a degreed nutritionist is recommended when faced with any medical, health, or strict dietary issues. As mentioned earlier, the goal of nutrition during pregnancy and lactation is optimal outcomes for mom and baby. Helping baby develop and grow well, while assisting mom in maintaining or obtaining good health themselves, is important. Thank you.